our demo, our trivia game demo. To give some context, our trivia game takes an input from the user, right? The user selects one of the trivia games in our 4 options. We have 4 options here in our trivia type. We have a movie trivia, a music trivia, sports trivia, and NYC trivia. So the user gets a prompt, select one of the trivias, they enter 1, 2, 3, 4, it selects one choice, it goes ahead, it starts a game, right? We have our game object here. We stopped on our last method for our game. Our game needs the last and final method to actually make everything work. So here we need to write a method that takes in the user's choice of trivia, example 1, to play the movie trivia, right? So we need to write that last method. So that's the first method the user encounters, right? Enter some number, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. We take that number, we write a switch statement on that number, right? Based on that number, we select one of the trivia choices. And based on that trivia choice, we populate our array, right? So that's where we headed. The objective is to finish the project with everything working in main.swift. Yes?
Okay, so I guess this makes it a lot clearer. I thought at first that there were 10
questions.
10 questions in total, which there are.
Right.
But I thought that they would randomly get a question of the 10 total, but instead you're doing that they're accessing it by not just the type, but by the theme, I should say, the theme for the question, or the category exactly. So when you do, like, so when they start over, they can just choose another number, or they can choose the same number, and that would be the one you start over.
Exactly, exactly. So as Tiffany is saying, the user, for clarification, the user gets to choose one of those 4 categories based on the trivia type they choose. We use our for loop in the start function. We go through it and we make a questions array, right? We filter the questions array basically. Everybody with me? That's what we wrote in our start method. Let's go back to that start method. One of the things we'll have to do to that start method is refactor the name.
I'm sorry, I have one other thing.
Yes.
Inside of the function, because I know that code usually reads from top to bottom.
Yes.
When you're inside of the class, it still reads from top to bottom?
No, it does not. Good question.
Okay.
So the class is functions,
Right.
or the struct is functions.
Right.
And the user of that class calls whatever function they want in whichever order. They might not be using all the functions in the class. We don't use all the functions in string, but we access what we need as we need it. But it's available for us. It's an API, right? It's an API, it's available for us, API application interface, programming interface. It doesn't go top down. Remember, you call a function by invoking it. Tiffany, remember you call a function by invoking it. Our function here, function start, doesn't work unless we explicitly say game.start. Everybody with me? Okay, part of clarification here as we ask questions, start is not a good name. It's not a good name for that function. It does not start the game explicitly. Does everybody agree? It doesn't start the game. There's nothing here that says, now I'm starting the game. So let's refactor that name, start, to something else. What does that function really do? It creates an array, right? It creates an array of questions. Do we agree? Right? So let's refactor that name. So command click on start, or right click on start, sorry, right click on start. And where it says refactor, do we see refactor? Do we see refactor? Rename, refactor, rename. Everybody? If you don't see it, let us know before we move on. Okay, let's do it again. I'm right-clicking on the name of the function. Right-click on the name of the function. To right-click is to double-tap on the right side of the mouse. We are in game file. We're on the start function, or the start method. Start method. Julia, in game, look at the start method. The easiest way to get to that is click on the jumper in game. Are you in game? Click on the jumper here. Look at me. Click on the jumper. and look for start. Click on start. And right-click on the name start. Right-click on the name start. Two-finger tap on the name start. Do you see refactor? Do you see refactor? Everybody sees refactor? Okay, so refactor, rename. And according to Eric here, again, it renames everything in the project. Everywhere you use in start, it renames it. Everybody? That's the way you want to rename files in your project from now on. Rename, refactor. Yes?
So that's when we have a project with multiple files, but if it's just that same...
Then edit in scope. But from now on, we are building projects. We will go to playgrounds now and then, but this is a project, many files. Oh, good question. Write a method to start the game. We'll come back to that later. For now, we will change the notes. Okay? So here we want to rename it to, what do we want to rename it to? Create questions is good, right? Do we agree or disagree? That's what it does, correct? Yes or no? Yes. All right, I need some energy here. Well. Okay, so the function creates questions. So it's called create questions. It doesn't start the game. So far, so good. All right, so we refactored that. Command B, make sure it still builds. Command B, make sure it still builds. Anna, it did not change the comments. Yeah. All right, so Command B, make sure it builds. No errors, we could move on. I'll try to keep this one slower than normal here. Let's go to our README. If we're looking at our README, where it says, I'm still in README on the game.swift here. I'm looking at that section, game.swift. I'm looking at number 6. Number 6 says, write a method that takes in the user's choice of trivia. Example, string 1 to play movie trivia. So far, so good. So far, so good. Right? So let's all create a method. This is going to be the last method for now in our game class. So go down to right below reset here. Right below reset, we'll create a new method. We'll create a new method. Our function starts with func keyword. We'll say select trivia. Great. We'll ignore the external name. What does this take? What does this function take? What type? String, character, something, right? Some sort of argument, some sort of parameter. In our case, we want to take a trivia type. Well, trivia type. Called trivia type. Sorry. And let's rename this. Apologies here. Apologies, sorry. Big lunch, small lunch, who knows? We're taking in a string from the user, from the read line. It's a user response, it's a string. Sorry about that. We've done that sometimes, right? From now on, I will tell us. If we've seen something before, I will tell us, I'll answer the question, but I'll tell us to go back and look at functions. Right? Go back and look at functions parameters, especially. There's function parameters, there's external parameter names, and there's internal parameter names. So here, revisit function. No, I'll answer the question. Revisit function parameter names. There is external parameter name and internal parameter name. Right? The external name, Tiffany, comes right after the parens in the parameter. When you call the function, that label you have, that's the external parameter name. Right? If you do not want to supply that label name, colon, you ignore it by the underscore.
Oh, so you can't just do a space, you have to have the underscore there.
What do you mean, like a space like this?
Yeah.
No, you need the underscore.
Right.
The underscore tells the compiler to ignore it when the user is calling that function.
Oh.
Right? So when I say print string, I don't say print name string. I just say print string.
Okay.
So the argument is ignored.
So
Cool?
now when it's called, it doesn't give you when it gives you
The label colon. Yeah, exactly. So that's what that is there. Very good. So here, select trivia, the user enters some response, whatever that response is. Great. Character? It could be a string, it's fine. We're not going to convert it. It could be a character, yes, and then we could check it to make sure it's count 1. But for now, just a string is fine. But very good. Like back in the hangman you're talking about, right? It could be a character. One. For now, just a string is fine. The point is for us to finish, and then we could always refactor it. Is that fine, Luba? All right. So here, the user enters some option. My option could be 1, for example, up to 4 for now. Right? Whoa. So it could be 1 string, 2, 3, 4. So far, so good. So far, so good. What construct will we use in that select trivia function to figure out what option the user entered? What are we going to use? A switch, right? According to Chelsea here. We'll use a switch on user response. So far, so good?
Yeah.
Right? So we'll use a switch, according to Chelsea, on user response. Right? So on the switch, we say case, the user entered 1. Then we say create, what do we call it? Create questions. If the user entered option 1, we say create questions. And what do we pass it? We pass it some argument, which is a trivia type. So here we'll say movie for first one. Great. So my function gets executed in the main.swift file. The user enters some string. I get that string from readline. I call my select trivia. I pass it, that string. On my switch statement, I switch on what the user entered. If the user entered 1, I create questions for movie trivia. So far, so good. Right? If I enter option 2, I create questions for sports trivia. If I create option 3, I create questions for NYC trivia. And for case 4, I create questions for music. Actually, NYC will make last here, and music will make third. Doesn't really matter. Have we exhausted our switch statement? It's a string. We cannot possibly ever exhaust a string. Okay? So yes, we could refactor this, make it an enum, or we could use our own enum and make it, we could do a lot of things. But for now, we'll just say default here, and we'll just print on a trivia is unavailable, or trivia type. We're not returning anything. Trivia type is unavailable. Cool. So this is good, this is good. Build, make sure you have no errors here. Let me take this down so you see the entire function. All right, so this is our select trivia method. It takes in a string from the user. At this point, we read line, we get the string, we call our select trivia function, we switch on the string, and if the user entered one of those cases correctly, we go ahead and we create the questions. We wrote the questions function. That was our longest method for the day. So that takes in a trivia, it goes through our array, and it creates an array of questions. So far, so good. So far, so good. Yes? Of string. We could have done string numbers. Yes, we could have done that. You could also refactor it. Like if you, at the end of the day, refactor this code whichever way you want to. Play with it, that's the way we learn. Yes. It would impact only where we did the trivia type. Remember trivia type, we typed it to a string. So that would change, that would break. Right, so this question was, if we refactor our current trivia type with those strings here, we could just say case.movietrivia.raw value or whatever, right? But it would break our trivia type question in our convenience init. Good? So you could create your own enum that captures this. Cool? Like create your own enum, like give it a different name, like user choice. That's valid, user choice, and then one of those choices. All right, so this is good. We have our select trivia here. Let's see how we do it. Everybody copied the code? Wrote the code out? Let's make sure we are good here. Great. So question we have represents a question model. We spoke about object-oriented programming. Here we are modeling a question taken from the data, which we spoke about yesterday. Create a fillable convenience, we did that. Refactor, we did that. Now let's move to the main part of the project, or the main part of the program, the actual heart of the program. First off, create a game instance. We've done that, if I recall. Let's go back to main.swift. So we're in main.swift right now. So far, so good. We're in main.swift. Let's start again, get some more practice. Take all your code out. Let's start over. I'm in main.swift right now. So far, so good. So far, so good. Number one says create a game instance. Go ahead, everybody, create a game instance. Create a game instance. You could make it a constant. I don't think we're changing game stuff. We did that already. Okay. Cool. All right, great, great, great. We all know how to create an instance of something. So here we have our game instance. Great. Step 2, create a property called play again and set it to false. This will be modified based on if the user wishes to continue playing the game. Does that make sense? So if I have 5 questions, I get to the end of my fifth question, right? The game is done. So far so good, based on the logic we've written. Because each time you get a question, it decrements, or it pops, it removes from the array. So from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All right? Everybody with me? When I'm done playing the game, I have a variable. We see where we're going. We have a repeat while. How to stop the repeat while. Everybody with me? If the user wants to keep playing the game, then my play again is true. So far so good? So we have this play again property here. Let's go ahead and create it. Yes, question. Question. It could be, it's not really a property here. It's a variable in that sense. But then again, it's still a property. It's still in main, not Swift. So yes, that's still a property. Okay? All right, so here we have our property play again. This is good. And we set it to false. Great. Use a repeat while to start playing the game. Let's go ahead and do that. We start a repeat while with repeat. This is our syntax here. While. While what? While play again. Very good. So far, so good. That's the foundation of our repeat while. Repeat some code while some condition is true. So far, so good. Yes? Why we have to repeat the code? Well, currently, this is false. The heart of the game, everything, like all the questions, get called first before we get to the end of this repeat while. Inside that repeat while, we'll have a next repeat while. That next repeat while will be doing the questions. We'll be getting the questions. While there's more questions, keep getting questions. It does not stop that loop unless itself is false. Yes, sir.
But this repeat while statement says repeat while statement is true. Is that correct?
Yes. So in the case we have right now, it's only going to run once based on what we have right now. So far, so good? When it gets to the bottom and checks the condition, remember repeat while checks the condition.
All right, so right now, play again is technically false.
Yes.
But it's going to, after reading the code,
If we put a print, let's put a print statement. The only way to test code is to test code. So welcome, for example, to Trivia. How many times does this get executed? Tiffany.
Well, I'm going to assume it's.
Don't be a lawyer. Don't be a lawyer here. Don't be a politician. How many times does it get executed?
It says to repeat this while play again is true, but play again is false. So it won't repeat.
So just give the answer. Like, it doesn't matter.
I don't think it's.
Okay, 0. What do we know about repeat while statements? It executes at least once. Why does it do that? Why does it do that? What's it?
Because condition, like to repeat it on the bottom.
Right? Because the condition is outside of the repeat while. It's at the end of the repeat while. That entire code here, from the repeat code from 16,
Read backwards.
well, not backwards, top down in that case. Top down, it does not check a condition. So the code the code goes to the compiler like this. Create an instant.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Let's go through it because I really this part here, we should have that in our back pocket, right? When we come in Thursday, we should just like take it out and put it on the table, right? Yeah, you can. The instance part we have that lock and key. The code comes in, it reads this, line 12, it reads 13, 14, 15, it reads 16. There's no condition here, correct? It reads 17, it reads 18, that gets executed. So far, so good? It reads 19, that gets executed. So far, so good? On 20, It stops. It's like, hey, I could only go back to this repeat if this condition is true. Right? Only if this condition is true on 20 that I go back. Where back is? Back is here. That's the only way I go back if that while condition is true. If it's true, I come back here and I print welcome to trivia again. So far, so good. So let's go ahead and run the code. So indeed, it happens once. It doesn't happen again. Why doesn't it happen again? Shania? Shania, why doesn't that code run again? Why does it only run once? Because what? It becomes true. It starts at false. Is this statement true? It's false. That's why it doesn't continue. Right? Right? So be careful how you word the answer there. It's not because it's true. If it was true, it would keep going. Right? So the condition currently is false. It doesn't keep going at this point. Right? While says while true. You could read it as is. While true. While this condition is true, keep looping. Everybody? At this point, that's where we have to take notes. Take as much notes as we can in that main.swift file. How repeat while works, all that stuff. Because no matter what game we have or what text adventure we have or what calculator we have on Thursday, we'll be using a repeat while somewhere. Yes, you could use something else, but repeat while is basically made for this, for command line. I want to repeat something while something is true. So ask away if you have any questions before we move on. You have a compiler error. What does the error say, sir?
Expected close.
You forgot a bracket somewhere.
Yeah, bracket. I just put this one here.
Please make sure when you open a bracket, you close a bracket. Xcode is great with that. You open, you press return, you get it right away. So far, so good? So far, so good. And Command B, Command B, Command B, Command B. Command B, build as you go.
But that only works in command.
We'll be in command line on Thursday and Friday as well. Right? Command B, do not write 20 lines and then run your project and have 10 errors. It's frustrating at this point. So you write 2 lines, Command B. There's no harm in that. Okay, where are we? Okay, great. So we all comfortable with repeat while and how it works, right? So we stop there for a second. That's fine. It's good to review here. We have our 2 properties. What's our next question? Use a repeat while to start playing the game. This is good. In the repeat while, take the user's choice. Okay, we need to grab the user's choice. So now we're on number 4. We need to get the user's choice, our favorite part of everything. I've seen people write read line without any prompt. It's hard to navigate what's going on there. Every read line should get preceded by a print. Does that make sense? Because we have our cursor and the user doesn't know what to do. So as you think of a read line, please put a print statement before. Are we on board there? All right, so here we have our print statement. Okay, cool. So we have select the type of trivia. Okay, it's gonna get a little cryptic here, but not too cryptic. We'll have a new line, right? We're all comfortable with the new line now, right? So our escape sequence, we create a new line. We have option 1. We have movie. New line again. We have option 2. We have sports. Great. We have option 3. Select the type of trivia you would like to play. You would like to play. Option 1, 2, 3, 3 music. Good. And then option 4. Yes, if you have any problem there, we'll be able to fix it. So we'll just verify that. Option 4, we have NYC Trivia. NYC Trivia, music, trivia, sports, trivia, movie, trivia. All right. So we have our prompt. The user knows what action to do. I'm not going to go ahead and defend anything right now, but we know how to defend stuff. If the user enters like 12, well, first of all, it's going to not work. That'll be unavailable. It's not going to crash. It's going to stop running. There's no questions. It's done, right? All right, let's keep going. So now let's get a read line. So here we have user response. Use read line here. Does read line return a string or an optional string? Optional string. By now we've seen it 3 times. This is great. And here we could unwrap it using nil coalescing. The order of you getting some nil value from readline is like slim to none, unless you try to run in playgrounds. You cannot run readline in playgrounds. Okay, it's a command line. It's available, but you can't. It's going to go through an infinite loop. Yes, sir. I spelled response wrong. Response. What's that? Okay. What's your next question? Oh, okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir. You could do a multi-line print here if you want. I mean, you can. Maybe we should. Okay, let's create one. On my screen, or my screen when I did this, so it's easier to read. So let's create like a user prompt here. That'll give us some uses of. So let's create a user prompt, multi-line. All right. So the first one, what do we say? We said select the type of trivia. You see, I'm not really copy and pasting. I just want us to type stuff no matter what it is. Like to play. And then we have we have movie trivia. 2, we have sports. 3. I'm sorry? What do you mean? It's better to do variables when you're doing things like that. You might want to use that prompt again. Okay? So here we have sports trivia, we have music trivia, and we have NYC trivia. Cool? And let's take that out, refactor in real time, and then print user prompt. That's cleaner. Thank you, Mr. Eric. So here we have our user prompt, which is a multi-line string, and we're calling it here, or we're printing it here, rather, in that print statement. So far, so good. Let's run our code. We command building, right, as we go. Command R to run your code. At least let's see some feedback from what we've done so far. So here we have our console printing, select the type of trivia you would like to play, and here we have 4 options. So I'll stop here until everybody gets up to speed. When you say multi-print line,
So like you don't have
like earlier, what we had earlier?
you see what you did for user prompt?
Yeah, multi-line.
Instead of that, put it on print.
What if you want to use it again? What if you want to use the user prompt again somewhere else? Yes, that's where you have to start thinking. Yeah, that's where you have to start thinking, maybe capture it in a variable. Not now, but maybe. I want to get you guys in the habit of looking in the future without seeing what the future is. Since you're doing a multi-line, just capture it in a variable. Because you'll catch yourself, maybe not today, maybe not next week, but some point you'll be like, I want to use user prompt again. Now you have to copy, paste. Do not repeat yourself, as opposed to using some variable you captured. Good, good, good. How are we doing? We typed out? Yes? How are we doing? Life is good? Can we continue? Okay, cool. So we have the user response. What's the next step? Do we have it in the README here? Call the select trivia game instance method in order to start the game. So we created a select trivia method. So far, so good? Right? So let's call it. How do we call it? Game, thank you, Luba. Game dot, what's it called? We have all our methods here. It's not create answers. It's select trivia, right? So if you're not sure, you could just like use your scroll down there and see which method you're looking for. Select trivia. Select trivia is the function we wrote. It's a method. It's marked with M. It doesn't return anything. It's void. What argument does it take? It takes in a string. So far, so good? So here we press enter, and we pass in our user response. Doesn't return anything. So far, so good. So far, so good. Let's revisit select trivia. How do we visit a definition for a method? How? Command, yes, command click and jump to definition, correct? Again, if I want to see what select trivia looks like, what do I press on the keyboard? Command click on the name and jump to definition, right? Here is select trivia. It takes us to the game class. So far, so good. And here we take a response from the user. If it's 1, we create questions. So far, so good. That populates our questions array, and we are ready to rock and roll. So far, so good. All right, so let's go back. There's a back button up here, by the way. If you want to go back, let me zoom in. Do we see the back button? So we could go back to the last window we had. So go back. We're back in our main. Let's go back to our prompts here. Use embedded repeat while to loop over all current questions. What does that even mean? Oh, what happens really if you run it? I don't think anything much happens. What do we think happens if you run it? Nothing really happens. Okay, if we run it now, everything is internal. You're not going to see anything. So I run it. I press 1. Nothing really happens. We have to keep writing logic, right? Like get question is correct answer, right? Okay, no, that's good. Okay, we have no errors, right? Everybody good? Yes, question. Because you did not put the underscore. In your function, you omitted the underscore. So now you're trying to not have the underscore. So if you go back to your definition, here we have an underscore to ignore the external label. Yes? Yes? Cool, very good. All right, so we're back in our main.swift file. We have the questions, by the way. We have the questions already. Right, the thing you could test, Luba, so if you run it again and put in, for example, put in 4, you get 2 questions. So that works. Everybody? That part we could test. Does our options work? Yes, it does. I'm able to put in 4 and get back 2 questions. If you get 0 created, earlier you should have not had that problem because we tested everything already. and you had correct values. If I put in 3, I get back 2. If I put in 2, I get back 1. So all that is valid. Mel, if you have any questions, all your results are returning 0. If you put in anything but 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to be unavailable. So that works. What's the question, Mel?
No, I just have 10, 0, 1, 3.
Oh, 10. Well, 10. You put in the option 10. Oh, you had 10 zeros were created. So your you need to look at your create questions again. There's something missing there. Maybe look at the file we had, the one we downloaded, or look at Mr. David's check his create questions. Look at his create questions. Okay, cool. So we are good. Can we continue? Yes.
At some point we created 5 earlier, so that's the first.
5.
5 was created, and then the presentation. Remember, I had another one. Just adds to the 5.
Let's see. Let me go back to where am I going?
From function, create questions.
I'm in game.
Yeah.
Right here. You could take that out.
Well, that's what's bringing the account.
Which is fine. It's testing the thing,
Oh,
right?
yeah, I'm just saying.
But it works.
Crazy. I'm getting so I'm getting the 5 was created first, and then when I click 1 to 4, it'll add that number on top of the 5.
Do you have your repeat while working already? Because here, let's test it, Christian, and tell me if I'm missing something. So let me take my console up a little bit more here.
So already
One sec. So if I put in 1, right, for movie, it gives me 5, right? If I run it again, and I put in 2, I get back 1. So far, so good? So it doesn't increment.
No, before this is like trivia,
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting 5 was created on top of that.
Okay.
And some of that I probably didn't close up.
Remove your print statements if they're in the way of your console for now.
Is it the game that created questions in the top? Do you still have that from the other day?
In the main,
I deleted that and I don't have it.
anybody else having what Christian issue is having? Right? Okay, cool. So here we have game select trivia. The user put in some response, and we've tested the 4 scenarios. So far, so good? Right? So far, so good. Okay, so at this point, we will say, let's start playing the actual question. So we have a next repeat while in here. Inside of the repeat while, we could nest loops, right? We've seen that with fors, we've seen that with whiles, we could nest the repeat whiles. I've seen it. You guys have done it. All right, so at this point, I will say while what? While what? When am I stopping?
Repeat while play again is true.
We did that already. That's the bigger loop. Right now, I'm going through questions. While I have questions, according to Mr. Kirby and Mr. Wan, together here, unisons, right? So here, while game that has more questions. Repeat the thing. While I have more questions. It even reads well. Look at that. While game has more questions. Keep going. Right? And we've seen it will become false at some point. Correct? Because what happens? It won't have any more. What is has more questions? Is that a property or a method? Is that a property or a method? A property. What type of property is it? What? It's an instance property, but what type of property is it? What does it do? Computed. It's a computed property. If we command click on it, command click on has more questions, jump to definition, the first one, if 2 things pop up, jump to the first one, and here it jumps to the definition. Has more questions is a computed property. It returns if questions is not empty, right? If it's not empty, that means has questions is true. So that's it for that. Let's go back. So where is it? Let's see where it is. So we go to main. You're in main. How do we jump to a property or a function definition? Come and click on it. Two options are going to pop up. Select the first one. You might have an error. If you try to do that and you have an error, it doesn't work. So Command B, make sure you have no errors. Do you have while game has more questions? Oh, it's in the game, one of the properties. It's the fourth property, I think, in the game class. All right, let's continue. We're doing good. Let's continue. Stop me if you have any question. Yes. Is that an excuse?
No, I want clarification. Is this a getter because it returns?
Yes, it's a getter because it returns. It just gets the value.
Okay. And if it were a setter, what would it be doing?
Set a value. So as you set a value, on that value itself, you could transform the value itself.
Oh.
Okay? We're not gonna get into properties. Maybe tomorrow we do some more properties, but for now, that's a computed property. It's a getter. It only gets a value.
So it's a Boolean to get.
It's a Boolean because it returns true or false. Yes. We also did a fellow could return a string. We did an example with a fellow full name. Maybe tomorrow we do that again by itself. All right, cool. How we doing? We good? You good, Tiff? Can I go?
Yes.
All right, everybody good? Zara? It's getting dark. Where did I get select movie? Oh, select tree. Wait, you have that. We wrote that.
How do you find it?
How do you jump to it? Okay, so command click on it. Command click on it, and you see jump to definition. Right? If you just hover over it, you press down command. Look, you press down command, it starts to highlight. I hover over this with my mouse. My mouse is here. You see my mouse? My mouse is over select trivia. Right? I press down command, it highlights blue. You see that? At this point, I click the mouse. Cool? You see jump to definition. You click on that. It goes to the definition of that function. Cool? And at this point, we go back. Mr. David got you. All right, very good. So we in our inner repeat while. Now let's get a question, right? Hopefully the README says that. Use embedded repeat while to loop over all questions, print the current question. Okay, that's valid. So get a question. We need to get a question. How do we get a question? How do we get a question? Right, it's called get question, right? Very simple. Again, if we find our names are not suitable by remembering what it does, we need to refactor it. Does that make sense? Okay, so get question is valid. It just gets a question. So we start off by saying game, the instance of game, dot get question. Get me a question. What does this return? What type?
So you can use question, the word question over and over again.
Yes, this is not in the scope of, that's not in the scope of anything. We haven't used question in here at all. In that whole main file, we haven't used question.
No.
What's that? We use it in game. Those are two separate files. One question doesn't see the other one. All right, cool. What type is this? I think I asked that question. What type is question? Come on, guys. Optional, right? It's an optional. If we right click on it, if we option click on it, it's an optional question, right? Do we see that? We can work with an optional question. We have to do something to that. What are we going to do? We're going to unwrap it. We wrote it together. You keep saying you were not here. We wrote this thing together. I think even yesterday. Oh, this morning. This morning was probably yesterday. Yes, sir. If you say, the minute you say, where do we have? As programmers, what we need to do now is jump to the definition.
For me, it's just the text
Are you able to command click on it and jump to definition?
Oh, we did, oh, we made it a question.
Yes. So we have our instance method called getQuestion. It returns an optional question. So far, so good. So far, so good. So far, so good. All right. It returns an optional question because this pop last returns an optional. Pop last returns an optional. We said that. Because it might attempt to pop something that doesn't exist. In that case, it returns nil. Very, very good.
You know, like, let's say the very last question is now empty and it tries to.
Not even the very last question. The very last question is a question. So the question after the very last question that doesn't exist, that empty question that doesn't exist in that empty array,
Right, so it's empty.
it returns nil. Exactly. It doesn't crash. Very, very good. Optionals are great. All right, so at this point, we have a question. We are great with optional binding. We love that. So we'll use optional binding here. At this point, we have a question. And the scope of question is only on line 32, correct? Correct. Right? That doesn't really work for us in that case here because we want question to also be available outside of the iflet. Right? So let's refactor this. Instead of doing an iflet here, we'll go to our next best friend. It's called guard. Oh no, really? Our next best friend is guard. Right? Guard against, or unwrap my optional here. Let me build this, make sure we have no errors here. What's happening here? Oh, sorry. Thank you, sir. So guard here, if that question is available, I now have access to that question variable everywhere up to the close of the while. Not just in the iflet statement. But the guard statement, I have access to question, the question variable or the constant, I have access to it outside, all here. Right? Everybody? Right? Madame, you texted? Okay. From 33 to 36 here. Well, 33 to 36, yes. All right, so at this point we have the question. So far, so good. Let's print what the question is to the user. Let's be nice. How can you answer something you don't know? Yes, question. What happens with guard? I come in here, I guard it, I unwrap it, right? Guard unwraps. If it's available, it doesn't go inside of that break.
No, I'm just like, so
Question now I could use where the print statement is. Yes, not outside of the loop. Yeah. Cool, very good. All right, so here let's print what the question looks like. So we have question prompt. So here we print what the question is to the user. The user sees some question at this point. They see the question. Okay. Great. We also print the choices of the answer. So question.choices. Already we saw the power of an object, right? You cannot do that with a dictionary. So far, so good. If we had a dictionary here from our trivia data, we couldn't just say dictionary.choices, could we? Right? We can't just say dictionary.question prompt. We have to optionally unbind the thing, right? It doesn't become that flexible, working with a dictionary as is. So we took our dictionary and we made it an object. That object we called question. So far, so good? All right. So everything is coming together here. So here we've printed the question, we've printed the choices. Now it's up to the user, or it's up to us to give the user some sort of way to enter their answer. So here I'll just call it answer response. We call our good old friend readline. We unwrap it using nil coalescing. Great, so far so good, we're doing good. So now I have the response from the answer. I have a check answer. I have the answer from the user. So far so good, let's back up here. At this point on line At this point on line 36, I have the answer from the user, correct? Right? I've given the user a prompt, I gave them the question, I gave them the choices, A, B, C, D, right? It's up to them to enter one of those choices. So far, so good? They've entered one of those choices from readline. Now it's back to me. We need to now figure out, is that a correct answer? So far, so good. So far, so good. We wrote a function for that. It's called check answer, right? We wrote the function for that. Check the answer. Is that thing correct? So here, let's go ahead and do that. So we have our game.check answer. We pass it the user answer. Let's make that consistent. Call this user answer here. Okay, so user answer, we pass in user answer. And then we pass in the question. So we have the question already too. This is good. Pass in the question. Sorry. User answer. Right? So at this point, I passed in the user's answer, whatever answer they put in, and our check answer just prints, right? It prints whether it's true or false. I mean, not true. Correct or wrong. We wrote that this morning, correct? Let's go back and look at what that looks like, because it might feel ancient. Years ago, we wrote it. So can I command click or wait? We still type it. Let's wait. Let us wait. Can we get everything on one screen? Let me see. Try to get everything on one screen. Almost. Almost. Oh, right there. Yes, sir. Here, you mean the second one? We just pass in the whole question, the question object. I mean, yes, we're going to pass in the correct answer explicitly, but most times you might have more things you want to get from the question later. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. In our function, look back at the function. It takes a question, and it says question dot correct answer. Does question dot correct answer equal to, right? It does it, right? Most times it's better to just pass in the whole object. In that case, we're passing in the whole object here, the whole question object, because you might at some point want more than just the correct answer. Did that make sense? Like the difficulty, we could add difficulty in there. We could add more things in there. Yes? You have an error here. So our check answer takes in the user's answer, which we have on the read line. Can you see? How are we doing? We're still typing? We're still typing? Yes, sir. Does it compile? What's the error? So you need to give it an argument. For the get question, you said? Get question, well, you shouldn't take any arguments. Double check your function and make sure it doesn't take any arguments, because get question doesn't take any arguments. So look at your get question in your game. All right. Do you have an argument in there? It shouldn't have a trivia type. For get question? No, it shouldn't have. Yeah. All right, how are we doing? Can we continue? Can we continue? All right, cool. So we checked the answer. All that is good. We are great. How are we doing? How are we doing? I'm hearing whispers. Can we continue? Okay, cool. So at this point, we check answers. Our game is working. right? We could actually test the game. Let's test the game now and see what's going on. So run the game, and let's see how far we are. So here, let me take that up a little bit. I select movie trivia. I press 1. Our question comes up. Does our questions come up? Right? So here, what was the first movie by Pixar to receive a rating higher than G in the United States? Any guesses? Avengers, E. You said E? There's no E. Which one? Incredibles? Okay, let's try Incredibles. So we entered C, and we got the correct answer, right? Correct answer got printed out. And also the fact of the question got printed out, right? Incredibles received a PG rating for action violence. All right, and we got the next question. The next question says, what movie popularized the phrase, may the force be with you? Is it E.T.? Star Wars, okay, so let's put in C here. I put in C. I put in C. Wrong answer, right? So that works as well. Let's keep going. Next question. In Wizard of Oz, 1939, what was used to simulate snow during the poppy scene? Asbestos, let's try that. Correct answer. The Wicked Witch's broom was made of asbestos, as was the Scarecrow's entire outfit. Crazy. Freak answer. Come here. Next question. What is the highest grossing movie of all time? Endgame. Okay, we put in
Black Panther.
to each his own. Here we put in D. We got the correct answer, right? James Cameron Avatar. Okay, what is the longest movie ever made? Insomnia. Okay. A. Oh, also correct, right? 85 hours. Insane. At this point, our program has ended. Everybody? Our program has ended at this point. We went through the 5 questions. So that works. So far, so good. Yes, so the next one is to restart and have them enter the next choice. Very good. We did not print out the final score. That's something we have to do. I want to see my score. How did I do? So far, so good? Everybody, I haven't printed out my score. I want to know my score. So let's continue. Let's do the score, and let's do repeat. What's that? Good job, you. Good job, you. Okay, very good. So let's keep going here. And great. Great, great, great. So at the end of my repeat while, yes, sir. The bottom portion. I'm on the bottom portion. Bottom? Oh, sorry. This guy? Oh, sorry. It just showed the fact. Remember, we have a fact we printed. It just shows the fact of that answer. We had it in the print statement. You could take it out if you want, but it just gives you information about the answer. All right. Let's keep going here. Okay. So we want to print out the final score. Everybody with me? I want to know what my final score was. I will do that at the end of the inner repeat while. It makes sense there. So far, so good. Because when I've gotten to line 38, at this point, I am done with the questions. So far, so good. So here, I could print out my final score. Does that make sense? So let's go ahead and do that. So we have game final score. Look at that. We wrote that function as well. Very handy. Game final score. What else should we do, maybe? Maybe reset it, if in case they do want to restart. All right, so we printed the final score, we reset the game, and our final to do is to ask the user if they want to continue.
So you would do that before the
Actually, let's test it, and then you guys will do the last part of it. So let's run it. And let's get a simple trivia that doesn't have much. Oh, let's do NYC trivia. So here I'm selecting 4, press enter. 2 questions were created. What stadium located in Flushing, Queens is home to the New York Mets? I mean, now it's Citi Field, whatever, but it's Shea, right? The first game at the Yankee Stadium was between, okay, whatever, that's done. The New York Aquarium is located in which New York City borough? Is it Queens? Brooklyn, right? Wow, I took it that you're from Brooklyn. All right, Cassandra says Brooklyn with an attitude there. And she's correct. In 1896, the New York Aquarium first opened in Battery Park, but it was moved to its current location in Brooklyn in 1957. And your final score is 2 out of 2. So far, so good? So our final score works as well. So all that works. All that works. The last step for you to do is I want to keep playing. I want to keep playing. So let's do that, right? So that's your final task, and we are done. So let's do that final task here. We'll do it right at line 41. All right, so prompt the user whether or not they want to keep playing. Cool? Well, we probably should talk about some access and controls too. Right? Okay, right. That is the space. And you're trying to access this via the you have to create an instance. So here is instance. Yeah, yeah. So you have to do the lowercase g. All right. How are we doing? Did we get it? Amini, question. What? What's happening? It's not restarting? The what? Your fact gets printed right away as you put in your answer, or? All right, so let's try to wrap this up. Wow, it's already 3:36. Let's wrap this up. So here we prompt the user whether or not they want to continue playing the game. So we'll write a print statement. Do you wish to continue playing? And we'll say yes or no. Right? So at this point, we will get a response from the user. Should continue playing, for example, equal to read line unwrap it. And here we'll say if should continue playing equal to yes. Then play again becomes what? True. Very good. That's it. That's all we need to really do here. Ideally, we should probably just take the reset over here. That's probably better. So let's just do that. Grab reset, put it in here. Cool. This is good. Let's run it. Let's test it. So I'll start out with music trivia. Let's take some more screen space here. I'll start off with music trivia. What pop singer is known as the Material Girl? Is it Taylor Swift? Is it Madonna? Britney Spears? Christina Aguilera? Which one is it? D? B? Joshua says B with an attitude as well. Correct answer. Madonna became known as the Material Girl after her first single of the same name. She hates it, claiming she would never have done the song if she knew the name would stick. All right. Next question. What singer holds the world record for most words in a hit single? Is it Kanye? Is it Busta? Is it Eminem? Is it 50? 50? It's Eminem. I'll do it then. Eminem? Busta? Eminem? Busta? One of them? Okay, let's try C. Kanye?
It has the most words in a hit single. Oh yeah. Wait, no, Busta, he be going that fast.
All right, Busta or Eminem?
No, Eminem going fast.
All right, I'm adding more M&Ms here. So let's try Eminem. So C. Correct answer. The Detroit rapper achieved the world record with Rap God. The 6-minute track contains 1,500 words, which means that Eminem is rapping a tongue-twisting 4.2 words per second. That's insane. That's insane. Final score, 2 out of 2. We still did good. Okay, next part. Do you wish to continue? Right, let's test that part out. I guess you guys are having fun here. Do you wish to continue, right? I say yes. It continues. Select the type of trivia you'd want. Right, so far so good? I go to sports, I put 2. Who was the only person in NBA history to be named the MVP, Coach of the Year, Executive of the Year? Was it Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, Bill Russell, or Phil Jackson? Larry Bird, I heard Larry Bird overwhelmingly. We go with A. Correct answer. Drafted into the NBA overall by Boston Celtics in 1978, the year I was born. Larry Bird played his entire professional career for Boston, winning 3 NBA championships and 2 finals, and da-da-da-da. The guy's a rock star. Great, we only have 1 question here. We need more questions. Do I wish to continue? No. Problem, we have a problem here. What's our bug? Let's fix our bug. Where's our bug? Who sees the bug?
Do you have to put an else play again equals false?
How do we fix that bug? The first time it was true, it never became false. How can we make it false? We could make it false here, right? Play again, equal to false, like that. Run it again, test the code again. Let's go with 2 simple trivias or 2 easy trivias that doesn't have many things, or just, so here we do 4, we'll put in answers. Do you wish to play again? No. It ends the program, we're done, right? So what we were missing here, because it was true, if we do not have that else statement here, it's always true. So far so good? Because we changed it to true. It never became false. Everybody with me? Even if I said no here, there's nothing to change it to false. Everybody with me? Everybody with me? I'm not hearing too many with me's here. We're going to put back the else. But I was just showing us what we had before. Right? So here we need to have that else statement to set it to false. Everybody with me? All right. So at this point, we have concluded our trivia game. Feel free to add more questions and share your questions. Feel free to add more trivias. What's that? We did it! Before 4 o'clock too, with 18 minutes to spare. Excellent. Would it hurt? Yes, it's hurting me right now. Scroll where? You could put the reset anywhere you want. We put it here. You could put it down there if you want. That's fine. But we put it in the yes just because it makes sense. The only time we want to reset is when they say yes. Because other than that, the game is ended anyway. And then you have to run it again anyway. And every time you run it, it resets anyway. Does that make sense? What's the question? Where do you want me to scroll? Where am I? Where are you having the issue? The first repeat. I want to overview everything we've done, maybe like take 5 minutes-ish, and then we will stop. Everybody code is working by now?
No, I have a couple errors.
All right, how are we doing? How are we doing? Okay, let's take it from the top. Yesterday we started this project in phase 1, part 1. We started with this file. It was called a trivia struct. So far, so good. So far, so good. We had our trivia struct. It has a type property called data, right? Data is an array of dictionaries. So far, so good, right? You could be given this on Thursday. You could be given any data. Regardless, we'll have some sort of data to work with, okay? Even if it's a dictionary, an array, whatever it is, some function returning an array, some function returning a dictionary, our app will begin by having data somewhere. Again, we said we can't have data. We can have an app without data. We agreed with that. So far, so good? The data for our app is the questions. Without the questions, what's the point of the trivia game? So here we have an array of dictionaries. We had that file given to us. This is fair for Thursday. You're given some starting point, somewhere to start, right? You'll be given a prompt as to where you should be ending, what the thing is about. In our case, we didn't have a prompt to begin with, so there were some clarification questions, like are we taking in all the questions? Are we filtering the questions? All that is going to be given. If it's not, you'll be asking like, hey, what are we doing? What's the end goal of this? The end goal of this particular project was for the user to enter one of the options given to them, and our array will get filtered, and it will only have the questions that they're asking for. So far, so good? We said we can't use a dictionary. You could use a dictionary, but every time the user enters a question or whatever, you have to go through a for loop. You have to go through a for loop. Is that the correct answer I'm looking for? It becomes very verbose and very hard to debug, going through that to create some game. That's not where we start as developers. We start thinking now as object-oriented developers. What does that mean? I take this game that I want to create, break it up into objects. Our first object was, hey, we said, okay, we have an element, a dictionary. We'll make a question object. The question object will hold the properties of this dictionary, or the keys. It will have a question property, it will have a correct answer property, it will have choices, it will have fact, it will have a trivia type. So we went out and we created a new file in Xcode, a Swift file. It was a questions class. Yes, we could refactor class to a struct. Sure. It's lighter to use. Sure. The reason why we use a class here is to keep us working with convenience initializers and seeing what that looks like, right? In a struct, you don't have the convenience keyword, so it's hard to talk about convenience initializers without seeing the convenience keyword. You get lost. So this class here is for illustration purposes. Ideally, this should be a struct, right? Right? A struct is lighter, right? We get a lot of things with structs. But here we have a class. Those are the properties from the dictionary. It's the same. A string is a string. A fact is a string. But we said, or we stopped, and we said a trivia type makes more sense to have as an enum, right? So you need to start thinking of the objects there. So we stopped there. We said, okay, let's go create a trivia type enum. We created a new file for it. You might see some code that you read where the enum is also in the class. That's fine for certain purposes. For our purposes, as you create a new object, create a new file for it. Everybody with me? You create a question class, create a new file for it. You create a trivia type enum, create a new file for it. So we went and we created a trivia type enum. Our enum had 4 cases. We could have more cases in there. We could add more cases, right? We said our trivia type should be raw value of type string. We'll come to that, right? Going back to our question Swift file, we have an initializer, right? It's called a designated initializer because it initializes all our properties. We have 5 properties here. They all got initialized, right? We do not use them outside of this question Swift file. We use them internally, only on the convenience initializer for now, right? Let's go down to the convenience initializer. We created this initializer because we were getting a dictionary as we go through the array, correct? Every time we went through the array, we got a dictionary. We couldn't initialize a dictionary without having that convenience initializer. Yes, you could write more code there. Inside, you could take that code and put it inside of where the game is, but that's not best practices. Best practices is to have a convenience initializer. You pass in a dictionary, you get back a question object. So we created this convenience initializer using the guard statement. We made sure everything was unwrapped. If anything was nil, like we saw with Cassandra earlier, she had facts, and that wasn't accepted. That was nil. So that one value that was nil, the whole thing was nil, because it's a guard statement. Everything needs to have a valid value in order for us to get to line 42. Line 42, we call our designated initializer. No more to-dos, we're done here. So we called our designated initializer. We passed in the question prompt that we unwrapped. We passed in the correct answer that we unwrapped. We passed in the choices that we unwrapped, the fact, and the trivia type. The trivia type was a bit more to work with because the trivia type, as a dictionary, sees it as a string. But we created it on our designated initializer. We cannot pass in a string. We will need to pass in a trivia type. So we use our trivia type initializer, the raw value initializer, on our trivia type. We pass it in, the trivia type that we unwrapped in our dictionary here, and that created us a trivia type. If it's optional, we use nil coalescing, and we pass it a default, sports trivia. So that's that for our questions. Then we went to the game, the heart of the game. The heart of the trivia game is game, right? Game has all the logic of the game. Whatever logic that defines the game is inside the game class. It makes sense. That same game, we could port it to an iOS app, right? We could port it to tvOS. We could just take that game alone and take it out. By itself, it works, right? It's not coupled to anything else. It's not tied to main.swift. It's not tied to anything else. Yes, it needs questions, obviously. How can the game work without questions? So the game and the questions, the questions, and the data, they work together, right? Obviously, you need a question for the game to work. In our game, we have properties, instance properties. We have a stored property here, questions. We have a score, total questions, which we made use of. Has more questions. Today was the first day we saw computed property. So has more questions basically returns a Boolean value. If questions is not empty, meaning if there's more questions, this is true. We wrote instance methods as the game needed. The game needs to get a question, right? So we say game.question. We wrote this get question method. It just returns us an optional question. It could be empty. In that case, it's nil. We are done. We wrote create questions. That's where the bulk of our day got spent because there was a lot happening in that function, right? We had to first go through our array that we access through this type property here. Trivia.data is a type property. That's why you could say trivia and not an instance of trivia. So it works on the type. Trivia is the type. So we're able to get this array. In the array, each element in the array is a dictionary. This is on line 50, so far so good. We went to line 53. We said we were only interested in the value for that key. Only in the value for trivia type key. Show me what that looks like. So we get the unwrapped value here. If it's movie type, that's the only thing we add to the array. And how we add it, we compare, is movie trivia or sports trivia equal to whatever the user is interested in? If it is, then go inside of that if block, right? If equal, if true, go inside the if block and create a question, right? Create a question array from that very same dictionary. We in the for loop, the current dictionary we're looking at, create it. How can we create a question from a dictionary? We have our convenience initializer. So we just pass in a dictionary. It returns us an optional question. Optional question because, again, one of those keys could be missing. It could be invalid, whatever it is. Optional question. Very good. So here we have a question. If it's valid, if it's a valid question, only if it's a valid question, we add it to our questions array. At the end of our for loop, we either have 0 or more questions. If we have 0 or more questions, regardless, we set our total questions to that number. Yes?
Can you just go over one more time the dictionary?
So remember, dictionaries give people a lot of problems, right? Because it's not as easy as an array. Array, you say array index 2, whatever. With a dictionary, you need to access the key in order to get to the value. The value is always optional. That's why we have to unwrap it, right? So here I'm interested in that particular key called trivia type. That key is in our dictionary if you look at trivia data. So I want to see what that value is. Once I see the value, I compare the value against what the user put it into main.swift. That option they selected, 1, 2, 3, or 4, will be one of those valid values. If it's equal, I want to start adding it to my array of questions. The 5 questions or the 4 questions, the 2 questions we have, that's where it's getting created. That's why we refactored start, which made no sense, to create questions, which makes more sense. This function creates questions. So far, so good?
Yes, so you can go to access trivia type. In the dictionary itself, it knows that there is a question. So that's why it takes the question. Because if we're accessing trivia type, how can we use the question to take trivia type? That's what
We need to create a question. This is creating a question for our questions array.
I'm just saying we're using trivia type to access.
Trivia type, let's step back. So trivia type is in here. We have trivia type on line 20. In my data, you see my data? Tiffany, trivia type. I'm looking at this key. Do you agree that's a key in the dictionary? Where is the value? This is the value, right? So when I access my key, what I get back is this value. Movie trivia. Is movie trivia equal to what the user selected? A string. That's what I'm doing. Okay? Is movie trivia, let's find a different option here. Is movie trivia equal to the music trivia here? Is it equal to what the user selected? Right? If the user selected sports trivia, do we add that dictionary? Yes, but the dictionary becomes a question because we have our initializer to make it a question. We take our dictionary, we convert that dictionary to a question object. Via the what? What do we use for that? The convenience initializer. Because we have the dictionary itself, we have that dictionary. If we go back to the code here, what are we passing to question? The entire dictionary, right? And if we go back to the code where we have the convenience initializer, what does this take? What does it convert it to?
They're all straight.
What is it making here? It's making a question, right? It's making a question by using this designated initializer. It's making us a question.
When you say question, you're saying
Question is making us a question, this question type, right? If you look at the code again over here, it's making us a question because what are we getting here? Option click it. Don't believe what I'm saying. Option click it. What type is it? At this point, it's not optional because we've unwrapped it. What type is it, Tiffany? Type question. This is our initializer. What does initializers do? Brandon, what does initializers do? They create objects, right? We're able to create an object, and that object is a question, right? This returns us a question. And the question is the question object with all the properties and everything in it. And that is made from the dictionary. Dictionary comes in, question comes out. How is this possible? This is possible through the convenience initializer.
So I think what's confusing is that the same question, and I understand that question is a question, but I want to know how to know to get to the actual question to ask the user. It doesn't know to get to it, it just knows that when you call it.
This function is only creating the questions.
Right, so it's only when they see the question when you call it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what
All right, does that make sense? The function is only to create the questions, right? If the user enter movie, it creates 5 questions based on what we have so far.
I got you, because there are 5 different
Movie trivias.
movies.
Yes, exactly. Very good. Cool. So let's keep this. I'll stack it at the end. Just go through. Let's go through it together, and I'll stack it at the end. All right, cool. All right, so how we doing? Let's keep going, right? So good questions, right, about the convenience initializers, why, all those things, right? So line 61, know how to explain it. Explain it to your neighbor. Everybody with me? Explain it to your neighbor, get into pair programming, whatever you need to do to explain it. What's happening here? And Tiffany's approaching it the right way, going line by line. Why is this doing what it's doing? Where am I getting the question from? Right? How does it know about a dictionary? How does it know to get the dictionary? All those questions. Those are questions. Good questions. Right? So here, when we get a question back on line 61, what do we do to that question? We add it to our array. Everybody with me? So we add it to the array. At this point, we have a questions array with objects in it. Great. So this is questions. And again, this particular function, know how to work it. Know how to create it yourself. Really spend time on it. As I said before, comment the thing out, redo it. Go line by line. You don't understand the line, come to us. Slack somebody. Mr. Ahad is always online. Right? So, next one. Check answer. Stop me if any of those functions are giving you problems. Other than that, we'll just go through them. Check answer does exactly what it says. It takes in an answer from the user and that question and prints out whether it's correct or wrong. Everybody with me? And it also increments the score. Everybody with me? Next one, we have final score. Final score just prints out your final score. This is the current score of the user. And this is the total questions. This is why we captured total questions in the beginning. Everybody with me? Because here, if I say questions that count, what is it? It's 0. Exactly. It's 0. At this point, we've gone too far. We don't know how many questions we started with. So the only way to do that is capture it when we created the questions. Next, we have reset here. Just resets everything to default. Select trivia is the heart of beginning the game. So the user selects a trivia. Based on their response, one of those arrays or whatever gets created. Whether it be movie trivia, sports trivia, that's how the filtering happens based on what the user selected. And that is, let's go to main.swift. Just one at a time. It's not multiple. Just one at a time. One of those cases. It doesn't fire all of them at once.
No, not
Yes, yes. So if I put in movie trivia, our function kicks in, right? It goes through our array. It only adds the diction. It only makes questions from those dictionaries where the trivia type is that type the user selected. Cool? Very good. Our main.swift, which we just created, the main.swift file. Here we have our multi-line prompt happening. We have two repeat whiles. The outer repeat while is only there to say, hey, if you want to continue playing the game. So far, so good? The inner repeat while is the one that's in charge of making sure I go through the questions. When I get to 0, stop. Everybody with me? The inner repeat while. This one says repeat while there's more questions. Right? Repeat while there's more questions. If there's one question, 1 gets to 0. When I get to 0, this becomes false. It's done. Everybody with me? When it's done, it prints out the final score. It asks the user, do you want to continue? If the user says yes, it resets. Play again becomes true. My while statement is true. It continues to the beginning. The beginning is here. It prints the user prompt again. It has a user select one of the options. It goes through the questions again, on and on and on. The user could basically go through this all day, right, at this point. Unless they say, when they come down here, they say, no, I'm done playing. Everybody with me? Yes?
Sorry. So just to be sure, the inner repeat while is basically repeating the question.
It's not repeating the questions. It's going through the questions array.
It's going through the questions already. So that's just representing the outside repeat while, which is the inner repeat.
Yes, exactly. So the inner repeat while goes through.
You get the final score and then reset it as well.
Yes, exactly. So the inner one goes to the questions array. The outer one is only if the user wishes to continue. All right, so checks if user wants to continue. Cool? So far, so good. How are we doing? Good? Okay, so that's the conclusion of the project. Very, very good. Thank you, guys.